Welcome, everyone. This is Coffee with a Founder. We're not drinking coffee right now because it's too late in the day, but that's okay. It's the essence of having a casual conversation that I like. And with us today is Charlie Silver. He is the CEO and co founder of Ruby Bio. We're going to get all into it. And I'm Beck Bamberger. I'm the founder myself. I've been working with venture backed founders for God knows how long. And here we are. Because on this show, we like to discuss with actual founders, why are you doing this insane thing of fundraising and using venture capital to make the world hopefully substantially better and all of us substantially better. That's kind of the goal. At least that's the people I want to talk to, Charlie. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me back. I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
Yes. Okay. Quickly, Ruby Bio. It's a fun name. Tell us a little bit about Ruby Bio and what you're building.
We are here to overhaul the chemicals industry. And the problem statement behind what we do is that chemicals are one of the biggest markets in the world that a lot of people aren't really aware of because we take it for granted.
Yes. Everything has chemicals. Everything has chemicals.
Everything underneath, and the chemicals world is so tightly interlocked with the brands who sell you your products that use these and the industries that supply them. And the whole industry grew up in the 19th century off petroleum. And hasn't really moved past that in 150 years. We have not seen anyone coming up behind to replace, the BASFs and the Dow DuPonts of the world that the 19th century brought us. And we are here to overhaul the chemicals industry into a place that the 21st century accepts and the 22nd century will demand of us. So we're here to bring better feedstocks, which is an important driver of chemicals in terms of how we create these, and just better products to market as a way of just completely overhauling this legacy market.
So you say here you have a biosynthesis platform that can manufacture all these molecules. How is it a platform? I feel like platform is said all over the dang place, just like AI. It's yes, exactly. So describe to us the actual platform here to make sure it's super clear for people.
I'm going to talk about the biosynthesis piece, and I'm going to talk about the platform because those are two sides of the same equation.
Yes.
And above all, we think a lot about the moves that a company like BASF and Dow DuPont would be making if they were starting their company today in 2025, as opposed to back in 1873, or when these companies really grew up. And if you were starting today with your horizon open to you, you would not be looking hard at petroleum.
No.
You'd be looking at every possible alternative source that you can build these chemicals out of, not just because petroleum is harmful to the planet, although that's a piece of it, but above all, the economics. Petroleum is a market that we know inevitably is going out of business.
Yeah, it's going out.
And we think a lot about supply chain economics. And within the chemical space, there are areas where supply chains are under enormous pressure. So that's one side of the equation. That's what we bring bio to replace the old chemical universe. In terms of a platform, that's kind of the name of the game in the chemistry space. We think of building a company in the same way that these legacy companies look like, at least from the outside. And you don't see a company that just sells, one very specific lauric acid. And that's all they do.
Yes.
Because
you got to do the whole
monetize the underlying assets. So, and I think, a lot of what we do at Ruby Bio is lessons learned from a lot of what synthetic biology and industrial biosynthesis has taught us over the last several decades, and lots of successes and many more failures to learn from. And one of the biggest lessons is that if you think about building a product, a company around a very narrow product, that product very often doesn't work. Usually the second or third or even fifth that ultimately ends up scaling the platform. So you'd better have a roadmap behind it rather than just building one. And that's really the way we think about company building.
I like, by the way, and I have not heard it stated as well as you just mentioned here, that, the big giant, if they started today, what would be the difference, or what would they build versus, look at the market, what's the missing gap? Okay, how we're going to be the more nimble, we're going to against the Goliath, and we could do that. Instead, it's just like, but if they started today, knowing the size that they could be and that they are today, what would that look like? That's a different way of thinking of like the problem solution, in my opinion. And
It's a
so,
different approach for this particular industry,
yeah,
and I think that approach is needed because venture tends to think differently about
yes.
these industries, and chemicals really operates in a very different way.
Mm,
Uh, the volumes are larger. In other words, the products that you need to sell to market are just much higher volume.
mm,
And these markets are just so much bigger that you tend not to think about, a brand new, completely breakthrough replacement, although we have those as well. You tend to think about, okay, this is what the industry's always done. How do we do it in a way that lets them do it the way they've always done it, but with better unit economics for their supply chain?
okay, that's the key then. Okay, so you said it's something it's not palatable to like venture. So what makes you say that? By the way, just to be clear on just you, like you've got the physics background, you have the MBA, you do fly fishing, you do a lot of things, Charlie, to probably keep your mind sane and such. But to the point of like where you just mentioned the VCs, they can't really get around their head because of the unit economics or whatnot. Give us a little bit more insight into that. Because the question I'm adding to or teeing up here is it hard for venture folks to get their minds around this?
So it is and it isn't.
Mm,
And really, the bottlenecks in this industry have been technology.
yep.
And the technology in our space within biotech hasn't really matured until kind of the
Hmm.
last 10, 20, maybe 30 years, the last couple of decades or so. And all of these technologies were brought to us from the drug development industry. Funded by the NIH and then developed out through the drug development markets. That's really where biosynthesis comes from. They're all very new technologies.
Hmm.
And within this space where venture has invested over the last couple of decades, you haven't seen a lot of successes,
Hmm.
which is largely because the market, the founders, the whole ecosystem hasn't really had enough time to really figure out how to bring these to scale. What's changed over the last couple of decades, which is really the driver of what Ruby Bio does, is that the technologies are now there and available.
Ah.
And it takes real experience of having scaled these technologies up before to deploy it at scale and create a business out of it rather than just creating the companies that these venture investors have seen over the last couple of decades.
Hmm.
If you know which technologies to build on top of, and you have kind of a sharp view of where the markets are able to take it, then these markets are absolutely ready for it. But it's
Hmm.
been kind of a nascent technology for the last couple of decades that's really just maturing right now.
Hmm.
One of the biggest
So a classic case of
mistakes,
timing,
it's,
basically, which
it's,
we
it's a
hear about it
classic
all the
case of
time. Yeah.
timing, but also just the experience of what it takes to deliver and deploy these at scale. There just haven't been a lot of that over the last couple of decades.
Hmm.
One of the biggest mindset shifts that I think has to happen within the venture space,
Yes.
which is something that
Do
we
so. We love a
one of the
mindset
biggest
shift.
ones in this space is that synthetic biology, as the market thought of it 20 years ago, cannot just build every single product that you ask of it.
Yes. Yeah.
Biology is complicated.
Yep.
CRISPR and genetic engineering have really come of age as a tool set, but biology broadly is very complicated,
Yeah.
even as you apply that excellent tool set to it. And you just can't engineer from scratch every product that you want with the right unit economics.
Hmm.
So it's really a matter of understanding which technology can work. And it's not necessarily yours. It might be someone else's. And that's also been the foundation of Ruby Bio. We built on top of a
Hmm.
very mature and robust platform that came to us.
Hmm.
And it's the mindset that, again, you can't in a directed way build every product. So know what you're good at, build what you're good at, and don't just assume you can do everything. And I think that's a different mindset than where ventures played the last couple of decades of just expecting that synthetic biology can replace every market imaginable. You have to have some humility and some experience to understand what works.
Mm. Some humility. Tell us a little bit more about that. Is it because the problem is so large, so you need to bring that to the table, or what would you say?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it. I think investors have asked synthetic biology a lot more than what it's capable of delivering. And for that reason, we have to really understand as engineers, we have to understand what's possible with any given
Yes.
platform, be honest, intellectually honest about what's really possible. And
Intellectually honest. I like this. Yes. Yeah.
And really a lot of that comes from the experience of having built these types of products.
Yeah.
And I think as we learn lessons from this space, because we built a number of these companies, and we've
Yes.
also seen a bunch of them come and go. The biggest lesson is that every technology is not the one that's going to get to scale. You have to think very carefully about which ones are going to deliver the unit economics, because in chemicals, there's not that much room to play in your gross margin, and which ones are actually going to deliver the performance, as opposed to, just kind of a Me Too green premium that maybe doesn't quite deliver, which is largely where venture has come over the last 20 years. So again, with the mindset of what's possible at scale, together with some humility of the thought that not every platform can deliver every product, you can orient your business strategy in a way that actually creates a business.
Charlie, I'm stuck on the phrase that you had mentioned here on the intellectually honest. Where have you been intellectually honest as well?
So, from our perspective, there's a mindset. We've worked at big companies and small companies,
Yes.
and built small and big companies as well. There's a mindset at big companies, especially, that if you haven't invented it here, it doesn't matter. And there's
Wait. You mean like if you didn't build it inside the machine, the big enterprise, it doesn't matter.
Why
It's
would
out
you
there.
bother? Yeah.
Why would you bother? Yes, and you were at a
stuff
public.
is the best stuff around. If someone else invented something, we don't care about that. That's a very classic big company mindset. And I think that translates even to startup companies, that if I didn't develop this myself, if I didn't invent it myself, this is not a technology that's worth me building inside my startup company. And I think my co-founder and I, very much share this mindset. Again, as engineers, having built many products in our careers, you can't necessarily lock yourself into to working with, within whatever spotlight you're shining the light on. You've got to look across the entire universe of technologies that are available. And that was our mindset when we started RubyBio. A lot of the failures in the space came out of, both founders and also big companies getting very excited about their own technology, and thinking that's the way you got to do it. We sort of stood that on
a little
its
navel
head.
gazing. It sounds like.
Well, again, if you don't think ruthlessly about unit economics and gross margin and productivity at scale,
Forget it.
you're never going to get there. And especially if you think your own platform is the only way to do it, you're certainly never going to get there.
Yep.
So we took a very different approach and started with the market. No view of technology, which market is ready to shift over. From there, which technology is ready to serve this market. And it turns out if you have that aperture across the entire universe of technologies that can serve, that's not necessarily and probably not your own, you can find the business that actually makes that statement true.
This is so rich, Charlie. I like where you're going with these things. Now, let me mention, you have worked at publicly traded entities. You have raised 120 million for the commercialization and growth on some various things. When you did Mission Bio, for example, why are you here again doing this now with RubyBio?
We're here because this is what matters to the world. We think a lot about where the chemical space is going, and where the products are going that are needed by not just a few people who can afford it, but every one of the 8 billion people in the world. And we just don't see replacements that take the world forward. From the 19th century chemistries that are really commercially available today, and that's the reason we're doing this. My co-founder and I have both built a number of products in our careers. We built companies before.
You have founderitis, as I say. Yes.
I
can't help but build again.
The health tech space, and closer to medical science, and my co-founder especially has been all over industrial biotech throughout his career, and we think a lot about what we can do next that will really just make a difference for not just the world that we live in, but for our children and our grandchildren as they look ahead to the next century. And this is an industry that is ripe for innovation. It's been desperate for innovation. And there just haven't been enough companies and enough technologies that are really there to carry these markets forward. So we really are in this to overhaul these industries into a place that we think our grandchildren will be proud of.
Oh, I love it. How did you meet Pavran, your co-founder?
So my co-founder and I were both in mid-career executive MBAs, actually different programs, but
Oh,
this was about 10, almost 15 years ago at this point.
okay.
And we were both finishing up at roughly the same time. We just happened to meet each other through a group that kind of crossed over between the schools.
Oh, yeah,
And
because it was
we're looking.
Columbia and Berkeley.
I was at Berkeley, Columbia. Pavan was at UMass, and he had just
Oh,
moved
okay.
to the Bay Area. And Pavan had a lot of technical background
Yes.
in biosynthesis and chemical engineering. I had a lot of technical background in just a bunch of different industrial markets.
Mm-hmm.
And we came together looking for a business that we could create together by spinning a technology out of universities that we were affiliated with. At the time, 15 years ago, we looked widely across markets, just the way we did recently,
Mm-hmm.
bio, and we did not find combinations of market and technology ready to scale. And at the time, we both kind of stepped back. I built Mission Bio. Pavan built a couple more biosynthesis platforms, and we decided to come back together when the time was right. So we've gotten to know each other quite a bit over the years, and as Pavan was finishing up the biosynthesis scale up that he did recently at Eat Just, and I was moving out from Mission Bio and looking at my next steps. We looked again at these markets, and unquestionably, the time is right for it now.
Okay, so it was a timing thing. But walk me through a little bit more in the detail when you were like at the coffee shop, you're on the hike, you're doing your fly fishing, whatever. Like, what was it where you're like, hey, man, you want to do this?
So it was a very systematic exercise, I would say.
Oh, okay.
And
So
I
two
mean,
engineers were like, this is the problem. Let's solve it.
that's kind of the way to think of it. We
Yeah.
are engineers, and we think very much that way about company building and business building. It's, for us, it's an engineering exercise, and it's, kind of problem solving as you grow a business, which itself is a problem.
Yes. Yes.
And we thought about it very analytically. We did not need to start a company in the space at this time.
No.
We started very methodically with, I think of it as a McKinsey-esque sort of market landscape exercise to work through end markets one by one and figure out what the market pressures are and what's ready to shift over.
Mm-hmm.
And then separately, a similar exercise on the technical side before we match the two of them together. And it was not until we found a business that we could build that we really decided to do this. And we could just as easily have decided not to do it, for the next couple of companies and come back in a decade. But as we worked up these market opportunities, this is unquestionably the right time to do it.
So how are you, Charlie, with the 0 to 1 phase? Because you have been at big, huge entities before and publicly traded companies and so forth. Now you're in the trenches. You got a small team. You've raised 8 million so far. That's what my notes say. How are you in this you're doing everything phase?
This is one of my favorite parts of company building.
You love this phase. Okay. Some people hate it. They're like, I cannot, the one, I cannot. But okay, so you're a lover.
The reason I say that is, again, we think like, we're business builders, but we think a lot like engineers.
Yes.
In terms of piecing the very best solution together and then incrementally testing, failing, testing, learning, and doing it again with the smallest possible burn. And this is the stage where we have a giant platform built out that already, with the products we've derived from it, can overhaul the entire $50 billion surfactant market, which feeds detergents and a lot of food ingredients, as well as large pieces of polymer markets, which are pushing trillions of dollars. So we've already got products that serve a lot of these markets, and it's really a market execution play to figure out where we invest harder and where the business is going to scale. And at this stage, I mean, the reason I love this stage is
I see you smiling too, because you're like, this is my favorite thing. Yeah.
We don't think so much about 0 to 1. We think a lot about what 1 looks like, because that's what you're aiming for. And
then
at
what's
this
10?
stage, we think a lot about 0 to 0.1 and 0.1 to 0.15. And what's the next incremental jump in the context of what 1 looks like that can get you, just a little bit further. And I love the stage of the business where you're testing ideas, especially now that we've got a technology fully scaled up with manufacturing fully scaled up. There's so much room to test these markets, and to me, this is the most fun.
Oh, this is engineering's favorite game. It's like, oh, look at we're constrained. We have constraints, and we have the whole entire universe to go after. Like, what should you even do first? I think it's for you. Then it's a problem of prioritizing.
It's one of our advisors often says it's an embarrassment of riches. And I love that turn of
I
phrase because
love that.
it really is true. With a platform like this, we have derived products that reach into, really does push upwards of $1 trillion of market opportunity. But a startup can't do all of that. So
Exactly.
what do you do first and what do you do after that?
Oh.
And it's a lot of fun because some of these markets work really well.
Yeah.
Some of them will work really well in 10 years.
Mhm.
And it's a matter of prioritizing what you do first.
An embarrassment of riches, Charlie. I love that. I love that. I think we should end there. I think that's good. May we all have embarrassments of riches to get our hands dirty in all the problems that get us from 0 to 1 or to 2.5 or 3.7 and da 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 da. Charlie Silver, thank you for being here today. You are co-founder and CEO of Ruby Bio, solving the huge and immense chemicals issue that is existing in the world because chemicals touch everything, and we need a lot more change in that. So thank you for being here today.
Thanks so much, Beck. It's been a lot of fun.